Hey everybody, it's Mike and we're back with another episode. Before I start, I just want to say real quick, if you can, support the show on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/sitdownpod and for $5 a month, you get a show every single day. We don't run ads on this show. I don't need a bunch of fucking, scumbags from some boner company trying to make money off of me, And you guys don't want to hear Blue Chew ads cuz all your dicks work. So take those hard dicks and bring them over to Patreon. Give me $5 a month if you can. We do shows, like I said, every day, 20 minutes a day. And if you want to do a one-time donation, my Venmo is Michael-Racine-2. If you want to just pull out the phone. And you can PayPal me too, michael.racine@gmail. No ads, though. All right? Just remember that. So, this is kind of like PBS, but the shows aren't as well researched. Anyway, I'm going to give our guest a call right now, and we're going to do the show. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
No worries. How's it going? It's Christian Kaiser back on the show. Yeah, how's it going?
Good, man. Good. Chilling. Just made one of my delivery meal thingies because I'm too too lazy to go to the store and use a recipe like an adult, so I have to have it sent to me. But it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
You know what? I didn't trash Blue Apron, but I just trashed Blue Chew because I was plugging the Patreon and I was like, we don't do ads for a boner company, but I almost trashed Blue Apron, and now you're picking up the phone and you're like, yep, my favorite thing is to get food. Although I gotta admit,
that's a man, like for. I mean, you make incredible recipes. Like, you make stuff from scratch, so I just feel like
yeah,
bit of a schmuck, having things delivered to me. But I'm getting back to it. I'm trying to cook more.
We got somebody else's Blue Apron one time, and it was really good. I made lo mein for the first time, and then so
really?
I learned how to make lo mein from that recipe. Yeah, I might. I'm not against it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I told my dad today that I was doing that, and he's like an actual chef. So
Yeah.
I was like, I felt like a little embarrassed. But then again, like, he never taught me how to cook, so what can you say?
Well, it's just crazy, like buying ingredients. I mean, you ever buy rosemary from the store?
Yeah, but I never use it. Like, I bought a
Yeah.
bunch of cilantro recently to make guacamole, and I used it once to make the guacamole, but now it's just rotting cilantro.
Yeah. Crazy. I know, you get like half a bush. Well, anyway, today's episode. So another Columbus Day has come and gone. There's been some more discourse, I guess, about Christopher Columbus, the man. I wasn't really thinking about it that much until I saw a PragerU video about Columbus. It was Michael Knowles doing a PragerU video about Columbus, and he was like, we judge people by I like jacking off on the bus. That's kind of how he talks.
Yes.
But
nothing wrong with that. It's a public place.
Yeah. But he was sort of like, he had this like long sort of defense of Columbus. I didn't even think there were that many people that still sort of thought that way. But I guess today we're going to talk about Columbus, not just the man, but we're going to talk about the holiday. We're going to talk about the history of the holiday and how it was formed and his legacy.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Cool.
What has it? Did it mean anything to you, like, growing up? Like was it was the holiday celebrated? I guess, like, other than just like the fact that you get up a day of school, but like.
Yeah.
Oh,
are you saying did my mom like dress up like Christopher Columbus and wake us up early and make us hang out in front of his shrine and light a candle?
Yeah.
For the greatest Italian to ever live.
Yep.
Yeah. No, but I guess, I mean, just like everything in school, it was like we learned this stuff, and then we studied it, and then you don't know what the significance is or why you're supposed to care.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was growing up, like, they did, I think it was like first or second grade, but they made us do a play, like, in class. Like, it was just like, and I really wanted to be Christopher Columbus. I got really upset when my teacher didn't let me be Columbus.
Uh-huh.
And I think she could tell is like this kid's like he's getting a little out of control. We need to like
Yeah.
calm him down a little bit and
Uh-huh.
not let him be. So they made me play the king who sends Columbus there, but
Nice.
I still never got over that.
Yeah. Yeah, they gave the role of Columbus to some kid in a wheelchair to be inclusive. And you're like, this is fucking bullshit.
And then I found out he was related to the teacher. Just fucking nepotism and
Yeah.
bullshit.
Yeah. Complete bullshit. So I was sort of like, I mean, we all, it's weird because I didn't learn about the genocide thing until maybe like 2 years ago. You don't think of him in that way,
Mm-hmm.
but the point is that he had one journey to, he was trying to find India. So he goes to India. Or no, he's trying to go to India. He lands in like what's now the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And then I guess he went back later. Now in the Michael Knowles video, he was like, he encountered this tribe of natives, and he said that like some of them were nice, but then there was another tribe somewhere else that were cannibals, and kind of like that's what happened. But I think what we know about Columbus is that he returned to the island, where he demanded gold from natives. Anyone. This is from, I forget where I read this. I don't have the source here. It's some website. Who gives a shit, right? But it says he and his men ordered.
People have Google.
They can Google it. You can just do a Google search for this. But he and his men ordered all natives 14 years or older to collect a certain amount of gold every 3 months. Natives who didn't collect enough gold had their hands cut off. But it was an impossible task. There wasn't really any gold. They had to sift it through through like rivers. There weren't really any gold mines. There was no gold around, only a little dust in streams. Many natives fled and were consequently hunted down and killed by Spaniards. They did a thing where you would bring them gold, and then if you brought them gold, they would give you a silver, or they would give you a copper necklace. And then later, if you didn't have the copper necklace, they would cut your hands off.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, like at a certain point, Lo, like that's just like you just have a bunch of people with no. I mean, they did similar things in the Congo and like with Leopold in the Congo. It's like you just have a bunch of people without arms.
Yeah.
Like it's totally insane. But like he was just a kind of a crazy sadistic motherfucker. Like people even at the time like were all talking about how weird it was. They just got this random, the Spanish king hired this random Italian guy to go to find the other side of the world, and then he just comes back with slaves and keeps going on and on about slaves, and he's just running his own personal, like, not even like a fiefdom, because like in medieval Spain at the time, like if you were a lord of an area, you still had to like protect the people you were subjugating.
Right.
And he was just like, no, fuck that. They're like these people they're not people. You can mutilate them. He also had a big proclivity for sex slavery. Like he kidnapped little girls all the time. He made voyages and like would just like go from his boat to the land and just try and find little girls. Like he was, the original Jeffrey Epstein, basically.
Yeah, but
he was
really,
too.
But he was really good at sailing. His navigation skills were very good.
Yeah, it did take some skill to get there. I mean,
yeah,
unless you're a Viking and got there, 300 years earlier and didn't kill everyone.
Right.
Or
that was,
or maybe also Japan or not Japan, but maybe Japan or China or Polynesians. Like people had been to the Americas before, then didn't kill everybody. I think that's part of the reason why he's famous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's testimony. I mean, this is because I think I read this in People's History of the United States, but it says the Spaniards thought nothing of knifing Indians by tens and 20s, and of cutting slices of them to test the sharpness of their blades. There was an account of two of these guys met two Indian boys one day, each carrying a parrot. They took the parrots for fun and beheaded the boys. But Columbus was so I think what happened is he goes over there initially with 3 ships, and then he returns with like 17 ships and 1,200 men because he was sort of shocked at how friendly the natives were and how like accommodating they were.
He writes about just like, yeah, they're just like innocent, like happy people. They're just really happy to see us. And
Yeah.
then he's like, we could really. There's the famous line that AJ Soprano immortalizes with 50 men, we could subjugate them and
Yeah.
subjugate them.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, and then so people who are kind of like Columbus apologists will tell you that it's the what we celebrate is like the Western civil is the
yeah, it's
bridge,
marked.
right?
Yeah, it's marked as like a momentous event in Western civilization. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the event where basically the West gets the upper hand. Like they just discover this entire new continent.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's free real estate. It's the beginning of manifest destiny. Like we call our capital the District of Columbia. Columbia is the female embodied goddess of the idea of Columbus. Like
Uh,
she's in that painting of manifest destiny,
okay.
leading people to the West.
Yeah.
Like they use her in war propaganda in World War I a lot. Like Columbia is a like, and I mean there's a country called Columbia. There was
Right.
like there were efforts to actually call the United States Columbia
Interesting.
instead of the United States because we wanted to have like a fancy kind of Latinized name instead of just the United States.
But this is all left over from a very sort of like competitive, kind of perverted ideology where it's like, this is cool. Oh, we found these people who shared their stuff. I mean, I don't want to be so reductive where it's like I don't want to be so I don't know what the fucking word I'm trying to use is, but it's like
Mm.
there are people, like there probably was some conflict. I mean, no group of people is all good,
Oh yeah,
but I don't know. But I do think you do have a lot of those attitudes where it's like people coming over from Europe and they're like, "This is mine," and
yeah. Well, there's also a bad
that seemed
thing.
to be
Like
kind of
people,
the
I think,
pervasive attitude.
yeah, I think people do sometimes like to just like to defend Columbus. They often make the argument that it was he wasn't even that bad. It was just disease that did that
Mm-hmm.
to Native Americans, and
Mm-hmm.
that is partially true. Like a lot of disease did spread across the continent, but it
Mm-hmm.
didn't really happen as quickly and as like unimpactedly as people portray it. Like, oh, he just showed up and everybody got sick. No, like he showed up and there weren't recognized like smallpox outbreaks until after he died. So like a lot of people died just from the actions he was doing and like the process of just like wanted killing, slavery. Like the island of Hispaniola's population like low estimates like reduced by 90% over like the first
Yeah.
50 years of him being there, and
Yeah.
like it's insane
Yeah.
that like people just want to blame. It's like, oh no, none of his actions really had to do with it. It was just the fate of history, and I think that's a big part of like the idea of like the Columbia and Manifest Destiny is that like, oh no, they like it was a sign from God. We get this land for free
Mm-hmm.
because the people just kind of wilted away and
Right.
disappeared into the distance.
I guess that's the rationalization of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of interesting because I guess before they were people tried to find sea routes to India for trading.
Mm.
The Silk Road was pretty popularized, but then when the Ottomans conquered it, they forbid Christian travelers. So then there was a need for to reach India through the sea.
Yeah, which actually turned out to be kind of fuck up the Ottomans because
Mm-hmm.
before that, they had control of the Mediterranean world, which was basically the center of the world in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
But because of closing that off, that like forced Western Europe to like start going into the Atlantic Ocean for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
really, and then basically cut the Ottomans out. And ever since then, they sort of steadily losing their power because the Mediterranean becomes less and less important to world events.
Right. Right. So now they're going through the Atlantic and they're finding other ways to trade with like China and India.
Yeah, yeah. And the way that I mean,
Interesting.
there was two ways of doing it though, because it was like the Portuguese and the Spanish started competing against each other. So I forget I think it was before or after Columbus, but they basically the Pope had to step in between Portugal and Spain, and basically divide the world up so they didn't like go to war with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they split it down a line. I think a line that goes through like the very tip of Brazil.
Uh-huh.
And that's why the Portuguese were able to settle that part of it, but
Right.
the rest of the Western Hemisphere goes to the Spanish, and then the rest of the Eastern Hemisphere, the Indian Ocean, goes to the Portuguese. And the
Okay.
Portuguese just go to fucking town in the Indian Ocean. They just show up on these every like port trading city and just show
In
up
the
with these
Indian
giant
Ocean?
cannons.
In the
Yeah, in
Indian
the
Ocean.
Indian Ocean.
Okay.
So like along the African coast in India
Mm-hmm.
and Indonesia, they just like show up with these massive cannons and just like destroy all these really like trading cities and just like we're in charge now.
Uh-huh.
And basically they were just pirates, but like they because before there was like a trading system set up and like people didn't need to go to war because it was pretty lucrative, and the Spanish and the Portuguese just throw themselves into it like a big wrench.
Right. Interesting.
And yeah, so the Spanish got the other half, and so that's why Columbus goes that way. He's like, maybe I can get around this loophole, and he thinks he'll just go around. He also thinks the world's a lot smaller than
Wait, so
it
the
is.
Spanish got the other half like prior to his journey?
I think that's how it happened. Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
But yeah, so they're trying to go around. They're trying to find a way the other way because that's their designated claim is to the western half of the world, and they just think it's going to be an empty ocean, and maybe so they'll get to India that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it is pretty amazing that he's just like taking a big risk, because if he didn't know that there was a landmass there and just got the land, like he would have just gone around the entire Pacific and just ran out of food.
Yeah. Right, that's a pretty big, because I think he was rejected, right? Like Columbus tried to sail for Portugal, and then he was rejected because they were like, your calculations are off.
Yeah, like can you imagine doing that on a move? Like you're just like, you don't have a phone or GPS, but you're just like hoping that like it's much closer than it is.
Yeah,
and just like oh, it'll be fine. Just like on a wing and a prayer, going on a full like a gas tank and be like, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Thank God for GPS. But
I would be able to get around without it.
Yeah. So I think I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really seem like there's any way around what he did in wherever it was, Hispaniola.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really seem like there's any way to justify that.
And...
Yeah, people just kind of go like, well, everybody was doing that because slave trading was very common back then, whatever. But he was so brutal that they had to enact some new laws after right?
Yeah, even like the king and queen of Spain, who are like not good people, but even they were like, dude, you got to tone it down a little bit. You're killing everyone.
Yeah. Right. So his offenses were sort of so egregious that they established the laws of Burgos in 1512. And that stated the following principles: natives are free men. The Catholic kings are their lords because of their commitment to religiously converting them. So it was very much a thing where it's like you can only kill them if they reject Christianity.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah.
That's like a saving grace, I guess. Like they like, well, no, we like they're looking. I think he was looking for gold, slaves, and Christian, or like gold, slaves and Christians. Like being like people that they can convert to Christianity is really important.
Yeah,
like they're still in a Crusades mindset. Spain, like they had just finished reconquering Spain from the Muslim wars in the south, and they're like, we need more people. That was something the Portuguese were looking for when they first started going around Africa. They thought there was this mythological king called Prester John in Africa, and that he's just going to be around the corner any day now. He's going to show up and help us defeat the Ottomans and the Muslims in Africa.
Oh, really? And it never happened?
No.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I guess because I don't want to be like intellectually dishonest or anything, because I guess when you have that mindset and everybody's fighting and competing with each other, it makes sense that you would do that when that's the sort of the mindset of the day. But I do think it's also intellectually dishonest to act like Columbus wasn't excessively cruel or anything.
Yeah.
And then some of these laws that they established. So someone who has been sick for 4 months cannot work on mines or fields. Not burying a native who dies carries a fine to the estate. Natives must be buried near a church. Natives cannot be charged fees for religious services such as confession. One boy out of every 50 natives must be taught to read and write, and Catholicism, so that he can teach this to their community adults, because they will more readily accept what their own child says than what the Spanish say. Native women who are married can only work on the mine if they or their husbands consent. Housework is preferred for them. Conquest is only justified if the natives refuse Christianity.
Wow.
So,
yeah. Like there, that's always been like a big, I think, like tool of colonialism has been like whether like not if you're people will try to convert to Christianity, but then like once you need to like take something from them and be like, oh wait, you're not actually Christian, or you're not the type of Christian we like, so that gives us a right to kill you.
Right. Yeah, that maybe that is just a way around. Like, hey, I tried to teach him the Bible.
Yeah, he just went like we just like kept yelling at him, and he never,
Yeah.
just kept praying to his local gods.
Well, that's another thing that Michael Knowles brings up in his propaganda video, where he's like, sometimes the Spanish and natives married each other, and he's like, you don't marry people that you're trying to wipe out. I'm like,
oh my god.
No, it's okay. I fucked them.
Yeah, and also like how many native men were marrying Spanish women? That's also a big sign.
Yeah.
Like, it's all one way. One way.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure they were bringing a bunch of pussy with them. Yeah.
Yeah, like Christopher Columbus's daughter brings home
a native, yeah.
A native, and it's just the Tony scene from season 2.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, let me tell you something. That's funny. I always wondered when I was in school, it was a weird thing, because you think about like, and I'm going off topic a little bit, but you think about conquistadors, and you think about like Cortez and Pizarro and how they were able to conquer the Aztecs and the Incas, and the Incas were like a huge empire. So
yeah.
They never really explained that to you in history class, like how, maybe that's a subject for another episode, but they never really explained to you like how they did that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much. I mean, did you ever read the book Guns, Germs, and Steel? Or
No.
ever heard of that?
I've heard of it, and I've considered reading it, but I know I hear it's very dense.
Yeah, it is pretty dense. I had to read it in high school because I had a really intense history teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But it is. I do think it's a bit reductionist to like just basically says like, oh, it's all geography and
yeah.
But it like I think. I also think it kind of hides a lot of the fact that like the example you brought up, the Incas. Like the Incas fought in the Spanish for a long time. Their empire kind of dissolved, but a lot of them just went up to the mountains and continued to fight. I mean, that's still like an area of conflict now, because like countries like Peru and Bolivia, they have very high native populations that never really
assimilated
Spanish.
Yeah, interesting.
And they learned Spanish, but they just like hid up in the hills and kind of continued their cultural traditions.
Right, and then they're still like probably oppressed.
Oh, absolutely. But again, that's like the crazy Bolivian president who took over after the coup last year.
Yeah, she
like started to be like, we're gonna kill the native gods and like bring back the Bible.
Yeah. That's really funny, because I feel like I approach too much stuff with an open mind, and I kind of watched that Michael Knowles video, just being like, all right, let's like, because I told you that the thing about marrying natives, and you laughed, and it's like, yeah, they must have. It's just a very silly point to make.
Yeah, no, I mean like. PragerU. Like,
of course.
No, but like that one as an example, like they just like they're just teaching you like elementary school. Like that's even more.
Yeah.
Like the elementary school one is like a fun story, but then they try and like use like enforced marriages as an example.
Right.
Bad.
Right.
Like I don't even think you would try to learn that in elementary school. They would even bring that up.
Yeah, I'm sure all Columbus's men were just like waiting for 3 dates before they went for a kiss with one of these native women, you know?
Oh yeah. They were just like nervously like sending her like,
yeah.
little messages.
Yeah.
Like drawing the little cutesy face with the,
Just like
in
trying,
sand.
yeah, trying on different outfits before their date.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, just incredibly nervous, and then coming in there
Oh,
pants
so
like, dude,
what do you
on
like
the
to
date.
do? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right. So what do you like to do for fun?
Oh, yeah,
She's like,
like, hell, have you lived on the island long?
yeah.
Uh,
She's like, I don't really see this going anywhere. And he's like, oh, okay. Thanks for being honest with me.
yeah, it was really great hanging out with you. Thanks so much for coming out.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'll call. We can do it again. She's
I'll
like,
see
yeah,
you around
maybe.
the island.
Yeah,
When we come to cut your brother's hand off for gold.
exactly. Man. Oh boy. So let's talk about the sort of the origin, because I was watching, because like when I research the show, I try to do as much reading as I can, but then I also like to I also like to look at I'll go on YouTube and I'll look at certain news stories, and I looked up people defending the Columbus statue, people in Philly, 60-year-old guys in Philly putting on their best white tracksuit to go rumble with Black Lives Matter in front of the Columbus statue. And it is funny because there is one video where this guy is wearing maybe the whitest tracksuit I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my god.
Um,
Is he clearly the leader?
he
Of the
might
group?
be. Yeah, he might be. And it's funny because the Philly accent is very, you don't really like expect. I think Philly and Chicago are kind of similar, because there was a guy that they were interviewing.
I can never do a Philly accent.
Well, Philly's like,
it's,
you like, why you, I don't understand why you got to take that down. It's history. And it's
like
always
I can't even make those sounds. Like, it's so foreign to me.
Mhm.
I didn't even know it was an accent. Really, it's so strange.
It is strange. I just
Like
don't
that
understand why you got to take it down. Just someone who's like, and I don't want to be elitist here, but it's like, okay, so what? Okay, it's history. So what is the significance of that statue? You know what I mean? It's just.
Well, I did want to know, like with the origin of it, like how much of it is tied to like the anti-Italian American Defamation League and like the mafia, like wanting to
Mhm.
promote Columbus, like that just seems to have just been like a long-standing thing of just like wanting to.
There's
I don't know,
definitely
like,
there's definitely a lot of that, and let's talk about that a little later in the episode, because I do want to get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it doesn't have to be there don't have to be people with bats every Columbus Day in front of the statue,
Yeah, because it is amazing. Because like I said before I had rewatched Sopranos recently, and that episode is always that one feels really stand out. Like, it's not really related to much else. Like, they really wanted to like talk about Columbus, because
Sure.
that seems to be, that discourse has been around for a while, and like it kind of proves it, because like they're kind of going over the same talking points. We hear it again, like especially this year with statues coming down, but like it really just goes to show like Columbus has been like a real open nerve, and like for a while, for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also funny, that scene where they're sitting around and they're like, I wish I could just sit on my ass all day collecting government check, and they're all sitting on their
Smoking
asses.
mushrooms. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
that's a great Bobby line.
It's really funny. Like, Italians think they work so hard.
Yeah, and it's like, for them, like, what's the time frame? Like, they worked really hard for like 50 years, like from like the late 1800s to like the 50s, and then they just became wise guys and just got to like hang out after that. That seems to be,
I think so.
Like, because like that's always Tony is always talking about. Like, he's always talking about his his grandfather, who was a stonemason and built these churches, and then like, what's the drop off of it? Like, that's the idolized generation, or that kind of thing, and like the people who came over originally. But after that, they're just like, I mean, they just like all get comfortable and just like hang out around the pork store.
Yeah, which is a great life.
Yeah, no, I'm not knocking it, but I'm just saying, like, how do they think? Do they just think it just like was a natural transition? There was nothing in the middle there, or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But actually, so this was kind of interesting. Let's talk about the origin of Columbus Day. So this is something in history that I've heard about a lot, but I didn't really research it until today. But apparently, um, on uh, on March 14th, 1891, 11 Italian Americans were lynched in New Orleans. Um,
Jesus.
so after that happened, President Benjamin Harrison was like, "All right, I'll give you guys a holiday," because there was a lot of sort of anti-Italian sentiment, especially in New Orleans,
Hmm.
especially against Sicilians. People thought that Sicilians were, like people thought Sicily was too close to Africa, I think, and that also they were all criminals. Um,
Hmm.
but it began. This is from I forget some website, some guy's blog, but this says it began with the murder of David Hennessey, a popular police chief. Hennessey was shot down by
Great Irish
gunmen.
cop name.
David
It's a
Hennessey.
great Irish. Yeah, that's a great Irish cop name.
Well, this is really funny. So, did you look at this that I sent you?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it now.
So, it says a popular police chief, Hennessey, was shot down by gunmen while walking home from work. As he lay dying, a witness asked him who did it. Dagos, he reportedly whispered. So, R.I.P. to a real one,
Just
I
a
guess.
dying Irish cop. Oh, it
Yeah,
was the Dagos.
it was the
It was.
Dagos. Yeah. Well, glad you're dead. See you in hell. You fucking
I mean,
Mick.
the Irish out of my family were Irish cops in St. Louis. So I'm just,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm just imagining that was like it was an offshoot of the family somewhere.
Mm-hmm. This says Sicilians were viewed by many Americans as culturally backward and racially suspect. Writes historian Manfred Berg, because of their dark skin, they were often treated with the same contempt as black people. They were also suspected of mafia connections, and their family networks were closely watched by the New Orleans police. So yeah, they didn't like each other. It's really cool for the Irish that Whitey let you be cops. Good
Oh
for
yeah,
you.
no, yeah, we were cops and tavern owners. So like the two most Irish jobs you could get.
Yeah. It says the act of vigilante justice was decried by the Italian government, which demanded the lynch mob be punished. But many Americans swept up on a tide of. That's funny. Italian government, like any kind of like Italian government, it was just every.
The one that had just started too.
Yeah, yeah.
The Italian government, and they've had so many freaking prime ministers in that country and so many different constitutions. They've only been like a unified country since the Civil War era.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that you have an entire country and there's no like centralized leadership.
Yeah.
But everybody speaks the same language, I guess, because it was more city states.
Yeah, but I mean, even still, like the Italian was a very like it's a very linguistically diverse. Like it'd be hard for somebody in like Piedmont to speak Sicilian to someone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but it is funny though that like the person they gave to give to the Italian because like in that era, like the late 1800s was mostly Southern Italian immigration,
Mm-hmm.
not so much from the north. And the person they pick is a Northerner, a genuine
Mm-hmm.
Columbus, as
Mm-hmm.
the as like we'll give you somebody, but not like a Sicilian, like one of the
Oh,
respectable Italians.
right.
Yeah.
Who could it be though? But I like, cause yeah. So 11 Italian Americans. So basically, what happened was there was a trial for like 11 people. They were acquitted, and there were like 8 acquittals and like 3 mistrials or something. And then the people thought that the mafia had maybe tampered with the the rulings or the jury or whatever. So they went into the jail and they rounded up like 11 Italians. They shot them. They sort of like paraded their bodies through the streets. And then it also says, police rounded up hundreds of Italians, even those who didn't seem to be associated with the attack. Local papers fueled the fire, demanding justice and declaring 9 men who were arrested on suspicion of a connection to the murder guilty before they were even tried. So they killed these guys. They like strung their bodies up. And then Benjamin Harrison was like, all right, we'll give you Columbus Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that is a very it's pretty amazing because that's a very like it just seems like a very kind of common story in American history of like American violence,
Mm-hmm.
the way of like how lynchings work, and it's like amazing that still, it's it was just a tool used for immigrant groups, African Americans, that everybody like. That's a very American way of like. I guess it's brought over from Europe. It's like they probably did the same thing in medieval Europe to people, but like it's just like, people would take like postcards in front of lynchings and take souvenirs off bodies. So it's a very like what do you call it? Public violence is just so deeply embedded.
Well, it's an interesting thing because 1891 it was a long time ago, but Italians have this I guess it's a complex where we want to be victims. We want to tell you how much we were discriminated against, but then we have absolutely no solidarity with people who are being discriminated against now.
Yeah.
So it really is kind of like a
Oh no, I was gonna say, but I mean, it's not. Irish have the same thing. The Irish were slaves. We were slaves.
Yeah.
Like it is interesting that, but like, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just think that like just wanting to have your cake and eat it too, of like maintaining some sort of I don't know, just like agreement, like and conservatives do it now. Like being a white Christian male is actually the most form of discriminated against group in America.
Yeah. Well, it's just weird because it's like Whitey just let you in the club after a while. You were just like a good minority. And then the only reason that you get to sort of like act like you're any better than anybody else is because you were sort of like allowed in. And there's there's this weird thing where there's certain Italians that you talk to. Like Italians sort of have this idea that like we rose up and we made something of ourselves, and look at and like anybody who can is just just kind of like deserves to be there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a very sort of like, it's kind of a pathetic, existence, I think. Or it's sort of like an embarrassing. It's like embarrassing. It's embarrassing to see that.
Yeah. I mean, like it's, you're trying, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
No worries.
Yeah. Everybody wants to be both simultaneously the victim and the person on top.
Yeah.
But it is very much like I do love, like, I think it's pretty perfectly embodied in like Silvio's character in that episode of just like he's just constantly has like this look on his face of just like utter contempt, and he's so upset, and he still has to like prove something that like.
Yeah,
that he's defending Italian honor, and but like,
but
as
just
they
so
all point
upset.
out, like, none of them are very Italian. But I also love in that detail in that episode is that the one Italian in their group is actually Italian. Furio doesn't like Columbus because he's from the north. They look down and they spit on noses at us.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah.
I just think it's weird when you hear people talk about this stuff. Did you get baked ziti? Deb ordered some baked ziti.
Oh shit!
Forgive me if my head's not in the episode for the rest of the.
I mean, there's ziti, man. It's ziti.
Yeah. Well, all right. That's it for the show, everybody. Join us next
all
week.
On account of ziti.
Oh shit! Fuck! I can't even focus over here. I mean, I knew she was getting food. I didn't know she was getting ziti.
Big rail due to ziti, the most Italian thing possible.
Yeah, and that was the last episode of the sit down that Mike ever did.
Oh my god, he was never heard again.
Yeah, but it's just weird because when people go like, people have this defense of these statues where they go like, it's history. You're not gonna change history by taking the statue down. It's like, yeah, you're not. But people who are oppressed by this type of stuff, and people whose ancestors were, the victims of that of those atrocities, and people who know that their ancestors were slaves, they understand history. They're not going to forget the history.
It's like Yeah, exactly. Like they don't need like, but again, those are what they're there for. It's a reminder. Like we won. We like
Hmm.
that's I think that's what is like we like they got to win. And to a certain extent, I can understand like the Italian pride of like, well, we got this day, and that was like,
Yeah,
oh shit, which dog is that?
it's Frankie.
Oh.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to give up the win. I get that, but
You
at the
don't want
same
to give
time,
up
it's
the
like
win, but it could be so easily rectified. It feels like, to me, it just feels like such a non-issue, and this thing could be so
yeah,
easily rectified. And I don't know why you can't have a simultaneous, like, make it Indigenous Peoples Day, but then also make it Italian Day too. I don't think these people would be so upset if you were like, hey, it's not Columbus Day anymore. We're gonna celebrate, like, I mean, I don't even know who it would be. I mean, you could have a Martin Scorsese Day.
yeah,
You could have a James Caan Day,
exactly.
for Christ's sake. If I don't even know if he was
The
Italian or
fake.
not.
No,
Have a Marlon
famously
Brando
so.
Day.
Have
Make
it.
it a
No,
fictional
no,
character.
yeah, no. I figured it out. Perfect synthesis.
Hmm.
Have a day for the crying Native American man who
Who?
actually wasn't Native American, who was
Right. He was
Italian. That's
Italian.
the perfect. Like that.
Yeah.
That solves it. Like
Oh
just
man.
have that day for him. That guy specifically.
We had a
He
great
plays
run
all
in
the
show
stat.
business, huh?
Yeah, he was wonder like that was the thing. Like
Yeah.
back in the early days of show business, if you were just a little bit darker, you could
Hmm.
play pretty much any
Any
race if you
race.
wanted to.
Yeah. It was great.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird because we celebrate it now. I mean, there's that actor who I forget his name. I think his name is Oded Fair. But he
I thought
was
you were
in,
gonna say Fred Armisen.
yeah, him too. But he was in The Mummy, and he was in Deuce Bigelow. He played the Gigolo in Deuce Bigelow,
I've
and there's
never
a
actually
video.
seen it.
So, but he's like a very sort of, he's like a darker skinned, kind of ethnically ambiguous actor. And there were videos a few years ago that were like, watch this guy play 20 different races in the course of his acting career. And it's like, yeah, you could have done that for Danny Aiello too, probably, or somebody, or the guy who played that Indian. If
Oh my
if you if
god.
you set that if you
I
made that
mean,
video in like the 1940s. Now I understand it's not really the same thing, but it's
no,
just
of
fun. It's just
course.
funny that you're celebrating this guy doing it, and it's like, yeah, Italian actors been doing that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't.
You could have a
I
Joe
kind of
Pesci
get
day.
the. Yeah, Joe Pesci Day, that also could be a short guy holiday too.
It could
You
be a
know,
short guy holiday
celebrating.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then all those guys with
It's,
bats at the Target would chill out for a little bit. But really, I mean, you honestly could do that. I mean, like, Joe Pesci is pretty. I think he's pretty universally liked.
yeah.
I'm trying to think of what other Italians are universally liked. I mean, like, okay, fucking Christopher
Was
Columbus. Hmm?
Chef Boyardee a real person,
Uh,
or was that just a marketing camp?
he was a real person, and he's in hell right now for making that fucking slop, for making that fucking abomination.
The one, yeah,
Fuck him.
crime right down there with Columbus. Like they're in special Italian hell.
I feel like I knew that stuff was slop when I was like 6 years old. My brother would eat it. My brother would eat like SpaghettiOs and stuff, and I'd be like, "This is disgusting," but he loved it.
Oh man.
He couldn't get enough. And then sometimes my
I
grandparents would go to the Olive Garden.
Really?
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever actually sat down at an Olive Garden. Like
I would.
I think
Yeah,
I've had their breadsticks. Like I've had
their
people like
breadsticks are
order it.
good. Their breadsticks are
I know
good.
they're amazing, but
Yeah.
yeah. I've gotten like their frozen food before, but I've never sat down at an Olive Garden.
I wouldn't be against going just to see like what it's like if they've made any changes to the menu. They did that rebrand recently, and and like the logo's different and stuff, and it's like, in my opinion, not a very good logo. It also wasn't really successful because it
Yeah.
used to
I
be.
mean,
Yeah, go
they
ahead.
also like didn't they used to have a deal where like if you buy they like send you home with the meal with another meal, like you just get a plate of pasta and they'll send you home with more pasta.
Oh, really?
I think that was a deal. I remember that being like a big hoopla.
See, the old logo was like it was kind of good, like late '90s, Italian American font. But then
Yeah.
the new logo is like it's in cursive, and it's just not. It's just very unremarkable.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should go to the Olive Garden. We'll take a ride out to
Next year
Germany.
at the Olive Garden. When COVID's over. Next year at the Olive Garden.
I also remember their commercials being like really offensive to me as like an 11-year-old. It's like, this is my Italian family. We're so fucking loud over here.
Were they like the Outback ads where they just like have a dude do like the most stereotypical Australian, or like do they have like a guy being like, it's a me and the meatball?
It was just like, this is my big Italian family. We go to the Olive Garden every night, every Friday. Yeah. Some guy's got
and she can't make food for us anymore. We got to go to the Olive Garden.
Yeah, some guy's got a gun at the table. But I remember being like, this is disgusting. Anyway, yeah, you could definitely have you have an Indigenous Peoples Day, and I'm trying to think what other Italian Americans are universally liked, but Columbus, like the average Italian doesn't have a connection to Columbus. I just think that it's also being Italian American, it's a very sort of like cucked existence, because you don't have you honestly it like answer. If you had to answer honestly, you don't give a shit about Christopher Columbus. You just feel like something's being taken away from you because they gave you something. Like Benjamin Harrison gave you Columbus Day, and you feel like you had to go through so much for that you don't want to give it up. It's like you feel like it's like a personal affront. So there's things to do that could make everybody happy, but I think, and I don't know if this is like directly a conspiracy or not, but I think, the system does kind of thrive on conflict. And I just feel like there's a world where Indigenous people can be happy, and my dad and my uncle can be happy too.
Yes, and we gotta keep striving for that world, because I do think you're right that there is like a vested interest in like keeping us at each other, like keeping each other at each other's throats about this stuff, and like
there doesn't need to be a conflict between Dominic Mancuso and some Indian people, some Native Americans.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's such a weird. That's such a weird conflict.
Yeah, you'd think, and I think that's like a recurring theme of American history, of just like playing up ethnic tensions to like keep solid. Like they would do that like in 1800s and 1900s, of like they would send Croatian immigrants and Serbian immigrants work in the factory, so like the boss was like they're gonna hate each other so they won't work together and form a union. Yeah, that was a very common tactic of like making sure immigrant groups who didn't speak the same language or maybe had backgrounds of hating each other, they would have them work in factories or in industries together, so it would be harder to.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, there were some crafty motherfuckers. Ford was famously the most anti-Semitic person, and he would like send out he would make his employees read like anti-Semitic newspaper and book all the time, and so like
it's just, and
and the Koch brothers do it today with fucking bring it all back around and bring it to the PragerU shit. Like they disseminate cheap propaganda that's like easy to digest and like keeps people hating each other.
Well, why is there tension between Puerto Ricans and Dominicans? They're like almost the same people. Isn't there some kind of conflict about like Dominicans being black or not?
I think that's the conflict. I don't want to speak too much out of class on this, or too much out of school on this, but I think that's a big. That's a big. I know that is a big issue in Latin American, because they have much more. But to the degrees, like who has family closer to Spain, or who has more Native American or African blood, and all that stuff. So it's a tangled web. It's a very tangled web.
Yeah, I guess there's always those hierarchies. Yeah, and Italians are at the bottom of the white person hierarchy.
Yeah. Everybody, like, there's a lot. I think that's also a very common story of just like becoming white in America, of like they let in different groups at different times. Like white people will always be the dominant group, and they'll always absorb people. Like you can kind of see that now with. There's more like well,
you can even see it now.
Cuba and like Venezuelans and like who like people in Florida, like who they don't really consider themselves Latino, they consider themselves white, and like they're, like becoming part of the white majority in America. Like they will just absorb groups as needed.
But you can sort of see like some Latinos being absorbed by whiteness, by sort of
Hmm.
like because you can if you read enough, Instagram threads or Facebook groups and stuff, you can kind of see that mentality with a lot of Latino people, where it's like
Yeah.
you can see very like sort of yeah, I mean pro capitalist, pro status quo leanings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think that's going to be a big thing of like why people are like with the Sun Belt, and like people are talking about that with like demographics in the election, like
mhm.
whether or not Latinos in Texas will become more conservative or liberal, or like
Right,
where that'll go.
right. And then also it's the same thing with like Indians and Asians. It's almost like black people have been waiting in line forever to get welcomed into the club. And then people
Yeah.
keep cutting, Italians keep cutting the line, Irish, now Indians,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. That's kind of like do you ever watch that Rising the Hill?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Yeah.
That guy. I feel like soccer is kind of one of those guys.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Um
But
they've kind of come a long way though. Even if you think of like the last 30 years. I don't know.
yeah.
Anyway, no comment. All right, that's fine. Anyway,
Sorry.
but no, I just think it is. It's just funny that this is such a point of contention and it's a source of conflict for people. Well, what I wanted to say was this. So you were on because you brought up the thing about Croatian and Serbian immigrants and we did that episode. We did an episode recently on Srebrenica, um,
Mhm.
in the Bosnian Civil War, and it was hard for me because I always like I remembered that conflict happening when I was younger, and I was gonna like I was trying to like revisit it and sort of understand it more, and it's very hard to kind of wrap your head around why there is this division and why there's this conflict with these ethnic groups because they're very similar. And it's weird. I still don't really understand. It's hard to wrap your head around like why people would be so passionate about fighting in these wars.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think it's like there is a vested interest in like keeping conflict up a lot of times. Often, I
Yeah.
mean, it just makes it harder for people to have solidarity with one another,
Yeah,
and
and
like
it's very much
that's
yeah, and it's very much like by design.
yeah, because that's the ultimate goal, is just keep people at each other's throats and not paying attention to who's actually benefiting and who's like sucking up all the money to the top.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because you can see that with like, I mean, if I was like, if I told you like, oh, an Irish guy and an Italian guy got in a fight, you'd be like, oh, that makes sense. But if an Irish guy and or if an Italian guy and a Cherokee guy got into a fight, you'd be like, oh, that's a little weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the kind of the people who stole Cherokee land were like Scots Irish in northern Georgia and North Carolina. So
Oh,
yeah, that's an old score.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think if there's anything that we sort of like didn't cover here. I think we sort of covered everything that I wanted to talk about. I also feel like it is, and I think I said this already, but when you watch video footage of people, in parks defending the Columbus statue, it means so much to them, and you kind of get the impression that like it's people who were given so little. It's people who are like trying to hold on to their crumbs, you know?
Yeah.
When it's
Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
taking down the Columbus statue is such a personal attack on them because they
Yeah.
feel like they really don't have much else.
Yeah, but it's also like, do you really need this anymore? Like, it's doing all right. It's what is it? It's like you're crying. You've got a Virginia ham under your arm, but you're crying because you don't have any bread.
Right.
Like Olivia Soprano.
Yeah,
Just
that's a good point.
yeah.
I guess I'm too
So
much of an apologist for, I guess like I see, I
hey, I mean,
identify, I identify with those people, I guess.
no, I mean like it's those are real ties, and sometimes it takes a minute to like kind of like work through it, but that's important, and
Hmm.
it takes everybody at their own rate to like work through that stuff sometimes.
Right, right. Yeah, it definitely is like a thing where it's like, all right, you had Columbus Day. You still get the day off.
Yeah, exactly. That's the main. That's
We
the
can
main
give
thing. Is like
Columbus Day to somebody else.
the important thing is a day off. It's
Yeah.
the important. That's the thing. I think we all should keep in mind. It's like none of us want it. Like we all got to make sure that it's a day off still. Like it should be Indigenous Peoples Day, but like think the.
Do you think maybe that's a boomer? Do you think maybe that's a boomer thing?
What do you mean?
The mentality of like, no, it's mine, it's all mine, like just the.
Oh, for sure. Like boomers, like they're.
Why are they so selfish?
Because they got all of it. They say they've lived longer and like they got all the benefits of the post-war economic boom and have like hoarded it for like three generations.
They're so spoiled.
They've vacuumed up all of it, and like they've watched like 3 generations all have declining standards of health and just sort of like health and well-being, and be like, well, I mean, you got like that's the sorry, that's the worst part now. It's just like, how can you possibly say that when you were younger it was hard? Like we can't go outside. Like half of the fucking economy is still shuttered. Like people are like we can't, like there's literally like nothing for us to do right now, and you're still gonna go off like, well, we had to pull up our bootstraps, and I also college
feel like
costs a nickel. College.
Well, yeah, my mom put herself through school, and she's like the stupidest person I know. So she can do it. Anyway, just kidding, just kidding, Mom. But it's funny because I just feel like there is sort of a mentality, and not to toot the millennial horn or anything, but I just feel like with our generation, is more inclined to be like, oh, okay, I can't dress up like Kobe Bryant for Halloween because it's offensive. I can't be Shaq, Oh yeah, because it reminds you of an era when that happened. Oh, okay, you want to change the Aunt Jemima logo because it's like it comes from a history of whatever, like oppressive imagery. I get it. But then with boomers, it's like with boomers, like, how dare you? How dare you take that from me? Yeah.
How dare you take away my precious memories of when I had a black housekeeper?
Exactly,
how dare you?
Exactly. Just disgusting people. And people say there's no hope for America, but they're not going to live forever. The worst generation's going to be gone at some point.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I just feel like they've got some more tricks up their sleeve. We'll see. It's going to be very interesting.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I wonder how this pandemic is going to change us. I think it's going to, like, I mean, we are already tending towards like more socially isolated, like people, like our generation's like just doesn't have time for friends. People are going to push having kids back even more. I'm not an optimist in that regard. Well, I'll tell you what I'm optimistic about is this bowl of Z'd that's been sitting on my kitchen counter that I've had to look at. I've had to stare at it like a dog in a cage.
I'm imagining the sweat beating off the ziti and just like the cheese congealing. So I don't want to keep you from the ziti.
Well, thanks. But yeah, thanks again for being here.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me.
You want to plug anything?
I'm on Twitter. You follow me at a memes to an end. We've got a show coming up, but I'm putting that together right now. Gonna see how that goes. We're calling it The Last Gasp. It's a comedy show we're doing in Bushwick this weekend. It's gonna be a pop up.
I'm gonna be there. If you're in Bushwick, come out and you can see me do stand up.
Yeah, we should have a Facebook event for it soon. It's gonna be it's limited seating, just so we're just got to RSVP for it. But if you're in Bushwick, come out.
Nice. I'm gonna plug my moving business too. If anybody has any if anyone in the New York City area is moving, or even I'll also do Long Island, Westchester, Jersey, whatever you want. Especially long distance moves. If anybody's moving to the city or out of the city, hit me up. I got great rates. michael.racine@gmail.com if you know anyone who's moving. Deborah's on my ass to earn more money this month, and it doesn't grow on trees, folks.
If I know anybody moving, I'll send them your way.
Thanks.
All right, man.
All right. Well, thanks for being here.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. You too.
Peace.
Bye. All right, guys, that's the show. Like I said, support the Patreon. Venmo, Michael-Racine-2 if you want to support the show one time financially. We always appreciate it. And thank you very much. Sitdownpod@gmail.com. But I gave out my email address earlier in the show. If you want to get in touch with me, you can always do that. Follow me at Mike Racine on Twitter, Racine Mike on Instagram, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.